sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gaahleri, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs.
Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in the Model Building and Retirement channel. So in this episode, it's going to be my first build of a complete 3D printed model kit from start to finish. I've done engines and wheels and tires and whatnot, but this will be my first time I did a complete kit. And with the kit, I used the BlackBox 5-window Coupe, 32 Coupe. And this is provided from Model Makers Workshop, which I do have a link in the description where you can purchase this or any other of their 3D printed items. They have a growing catalog every day, so there is a sales code where you can save 10%. It's a pretty cool looking model. And like I said, it's the very first time I did a complete 3D kit. I'll definitely tell you right up front, one of the pluses is the fitment of everything is phenomenal, but there is some work to be done on the body. Especially this particular car had some Z-shift in it, which definitely needed to be corrected before I could finish the paint job on it. Otherwise it wouldn't have looked very good. So this video is a little bit longer than normal because I wanted to have a good detailed video on a 3D kit start to finish. So this includes everything from unboxing to body prep to painting the entire process and even the complete full assembly. So it's all here, folks. You know, and you can fast forward ahead if you want to, but you know, it's about an hour long or so. And you can download instructions with this kit too. I don't know if that's typical of all, but very simple. There's not even any words in the instructions, so even us guys can figure it out if you need instructions at all. So, okay, hey, before we get into the build, I'm celebrating my 1-year anniversary of the channel this week. It just happened, so I appreciate everybody who's stuck with me and supported the channel and all the newcomers that continually join us. I really appreciate that. And also, I just wrapped up my live streams for Friday for the season. I did 18 episodes. Each one had a different guest. And I prepared a special little tribute to all my guests and my subscribers and my fans. And I put that out on YouTube the other day. But it's about 5 minutes long, and YouTube really won't push those kind of videos very much because they don't really gain any ad revenue for them. So I'm going to include a link in the description of this video because it's a little bit longer video, so I think YouTube will be pushing this video. So if you haven't seen it already, this is the thumbnail for it, and I'll have a link in the description for it. So okay, so let's get right into it, folks. It's a pretty cool build and a lot of detail, so enjoy. Okay, so it's time to do an unboxing of the BlackBox 3D printed 5-window hot rod coupe. And this was supplied by Model Makers Workshop. And this is going to be the unboxing. Now, quite a bit different than a plastic kit that you may be used to. So first of all, when you order it, on this particular kit, it does come with instructions that you have to download as a PDF and print. So it has step-by-step schematic or pictures, if you will. Nice colored instructions, so that shouldn't be too difficult to follow. And for the unboxing itself, let's take a look. Okay, now this did have some packing material in it that I removed, but you get a bag of parts. So no parts tree. And then you get your body, which was already just kind of partially stuck into each other. So you got your body, your frame, and your interior floor. Okay. So let me get all this out on the floor here and show you what we have. Okay, so I got everything out of that bag and separated them so I can try to sort things out. Now, unlike a plastic kit, there is no parts tree numbering. So there's no way to know just by looking if you have everything and what they are. So you have to refer to the instructions, which are pictures only, but it is detailed enough where you can decipher what you have and what you don't have. So let's kind of go over what comes in the kit here. So you got your frame with your axle and suspension partially assembled already. You got your interior floor and trunk floor, your main body. You got your rear wheels and your front wheels. Back tires and wheels are a little bit wider than the front. You got your 4 spoked wheels. Now I am missing 3 of my center caps that did not come with in the box. And you got your interior pieces. You got 2 seats. You got your dashboard, pedals. The pedals came broken, but that you can glue them together. It looks like I have all the parts to do that. You got your shifter, you got your gas tank, some more body parts, including your trunk lid and license plate holder, and then your radiator assembly and headlights and taillights. So I got 1 center cap there. So for your engine, you got your block and you got your intake and you got your cylinder heads and valve covers, your pulley system, air filter, oil filter. That's part of the intake cover. Valve covers, exhaust headers, a transmission, radiator fan, front and rear springs, and steering linkage. Looks like steering wheel linkage. And then you got some bucks here for your glass. These are templates for your glass. So you have to cut them out of acetate. So you got your front window and your rear window. And there's supposed to be 2 of the side windows. I only got 1, but you can just easily flip that around. It's going to be the same size on both sides, so no biggie there. So in the end, it looks like I am missing side mirrors. So what I'm missing out of the entire kit, I'm missing the 2 side mirrors, 3 of my wheel center caps, and that's it. So it's nearly complete. So it takes a little bit more work to just identify all your parts. Okay, so I'm gathering up parts are going to be like colors. Everything in this kit's going to need primed, but I want to accelerate the paint job first, so I'm gathering all that stuff up. And I'm going to do the engine block, same as the body, and also the very head of the header covers and whatnot will be body color too. So I already started cleaning this and then I decided to stop and show you, but there were a couple little supports still on this engine block. I've already got rid of them, but they're kind of they're right there and you just kind of fling them off with the little razor knife. But like the bottom here, it's a little bit rough where the oil pan's going to go. So it needs to be a little bit smoothed out, and it doesn't take much. So we're going to use a little filing stick here. We're just smoothing it out. Get rid of the bumps. There's like bumps from where the supports were. Okay, and the only bumps were down on the very bottom there, so that is good now. Then like on your trunk lid here, the inside is full of support marks. I'm just not even gonna mess with that because I'm gonna have that glued shut on there, but that would take some extensive sanding and working on to do. So that's why the supports are always on the bottom side. But on the top side of this, looks pretty good. But if you can see real close, try to zoom in here. On these little louvers, there's a couple spots where there's like a little support left over. There you go. I'm just getting in there with a little razor knife and cleaning them out. Doesn't seem like they're stuck, it's just a little debris. And then the edge is just a little bit rough. It doesn't take much, so I'm just gonna grind the edge a little bit. This removes material extremely fast. Looking at the grill. So this back side is very prickly here where the supports have been removed. All the cosmetic areas, they pretty much design that print to not have supports in the way there. But where this is going to mate up to stuff, that's pretty prickly there. So that just needs a little sanding. Just a little sanding stick. Okay, that's good. Okay, then looking at the body too, I'm going to let primer fill and do the most part of this. We'll prime and then sand. But there are areas, if you look from the opposite way, if you look from the bottom up, the bottom of the rockers is very bumpy. The inside of the windows is very bumpy. I don't know if you can see it. It looks like a porcupine there. Inside the windshield is pretty bumpy. There's a support right here. So this is what I'm talking about on the supports here, is you can just fling that off if you see them. Now here, like this is part of the body that's pretty visible, but you do have little support marks here. So first we're going to get the heavy ones out of the way. So for the heavy ones, I'm going to use my sanding stick. And I'm kind of just, like I'm block sanding, I'm kind of going both directions here. Comes off very easy, so don't get too aggressive with it. So you can see this pricklies as soon as I run that by a little bit. You see all those little pricklies there? This here, this is probably a bit aggressive too. It's probably like 120 or so. So I'm going to cut off a little bit of this 800. I'm actually going to wet that. Now, like right where that cowl area is, that's kind of a got some pricklies right there on the edge. So I'm going to take this sandpaper and I'm going to fold it over. Just get right under that edge. And that didn't take much, just a few little wipes back and forth, clean that up. A couple more back here. All right, so I got everything sanded and washed with Dawn dish soap and dried. And I'm gonna use the booth here, but I'm gonna spray some Mr. Surfacer White Fine Surface Primer. A couple light coats on that, and that'll be just our first step here. So I'm gonna shake this up real good. Okay, so I got some primer on there, and undoubtedly that's probably not the last primer that's going to go on there. Especially when it was still wet and glossy. I could see that there was a pretty significant Z shift, and you can actually feel it in the side of the body. And that's from the printing, sort of like where the model's slightly collapsing. on itself. That's one of the reasons I don't think I'm going to like the 3D printed building of bodies, but we're going to forge ahead here. So what I need to do there is, it may take some putty, but first I'm going to take some 1500 wet sandpaper, and I'm going to just use a popsicle stick here, basically. And by block sanded, I mean I'm going to kind of just lightly sand in 2 different directions, like you would a real car, except for your surface area is much smaller here. And you can kind of see now that what I'm talking about there, there's sort of a diagonal line going across because the print kind of collapsed on itself a little bit there. I don't know if that's the right word, collapse, but that's sort of what's happening. But the reason I'm block sanding instead of just sanding with my finger is I'm afraid, as soft as this resin stuff is, that I may be putting the groove of my finger in and not helping myself at all. So I'm going to continue sanding down with this method, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have sanded this pretty much as far down as I can, because the resin is relatively soft, much softer than a plastic resin or a plastic kit. And as you can see, the Z-shift is pretty prevalent on either side. It's a very undesirable effect, and you know, it's a product of 3D printing. It can be better the way you set this up on your printer, but at some point it can't be helped, I guess. So where you still see white on this vertical or this diagonal line would indicate low spots, and where I'm totally gray are high spots. So if you got a really nice glossy paint job, that is going to it's going to stand out and it's going to look like crap. Okay, and I have it going on both sides. You can actually feel it. And it's very difficult to even fix that because there are raised areas here that sand away too easily trying to repair it. So I've gone as far as I can now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reprime this with some fillable sandable primer. Worst case scenario, I'm going to have to go to putty, but I really don't want to do that. I don't enjoy working with putty. But one other thing you got to do now is, because I've sanded away this high spot pretty significantly, is I want to rescribe this door. So this is a scribing tool I have from Amazon Newfan. I do have a link to this tool in my description, and it comes with multiple blades. This is 8.2 millimeter, and I'm basically just going to very carefully retrace that door gap, because when I go back to primer and fill and sand and primer, fan and seal and then paint, if you didn't do this, you're going to totally lose that door jamb. That detail will go away, and I like that. You know, it doesn't look realistic if you don't have a door jamb. So I'm just very lightly going because it doesn't take much. You remove a little bit of material with each pass. All right, so I'm gonna get another coat of primer on this thing, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm switching over to Mr. Surfacer 1000 Gray because this isn't the final primer coat. I will do a white primer coat before my yellow, but this is a little bit thicker, hoping it's going to cover that. Hang on, I gotta adjust for the wind here.
Okay, I can still see that Z shift is pretty prevalent, so it's gonna take some more work yet.
Okay, so once again, I'm looking at this body. This is my second primer coat. And got a little spot on the roof here that I'm gonna hit with some putty. That one, hitting with putty will be no issue because it's very sandable. It's just in the right spot. But using putty in a place like this, it's gonna be very difficult to sand because you've got these high profiles right in the way. But I'm not sure the camera picks it up, but the Z shift is still pretty prominent. And if you can see it in a dull primer with the naked eye, like I can, it's going to look very bad with your glossy paint. So I still got considerable amount of work. What I did is I did draw a line with a little marker here into the valleys where it's the worst. So there's a pretty good valley going on right here. That's the worst of it here. And then a couple minor ones. This probably not gonna matter because I think the wheels and tires will be covering it, but I can hit it a little bit. A slight amount of shift here, probably not very noticeable, probably all sand out okay. This one I'm the most worried about. It may take some putty or just a couple more coats of primer. And kind of got the same thing going on the other side. And yes, it also, that Z shift also continues on through the wheel well there. Okay, so I am going to once again sand. You can see how deep that valley is because I'm only picking up the high spots on either side of my mark. Anyways, I'm going to continue on trying to sand that out, and then we'll probably get some more primer build up on there, and we'll just take it from there. Okay, I think I'm gaining on it slightly. So you can see I took quite a bit of the high spot away. The dark gray is the resin. Still got a little valley here, you know, so once again, I'm going to throw some more primer on there and just let that keep building up. I did rescribe my lines once again. So I'm going to shoot some more primer. I'm going to do that off camera because you've already seen me do it a couple times there. But we'll get some more on there and we'll let that cure up and we'll sand again.
Okay, so this is after the third session of priming and sanding and slowly creeping up on getting those removed. I'm not going to bore you with sanding again, but I went 5 total sessions and then I called it and decided it was time to move on to paint. So let's move forward. So I am going to paint with Kaleido's Yellow. This is K005 gloss yellow, and I'm gonna thin this about 10%. So I'm using the Kaleido thinner, and this little 60 milliliter, I had already pre-treated that with 10% of the retarder. So I'm going to go about 10% of this mixture mixed with my yellow, and I'm going to shoot that with my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush at about, I'm going to try 25 psi. So I'll meet you at the booth. Okay, so we're at the booth and for the first coat of yellow. I believe I did 5 coats in total, and I think 4 of them are on film here. And I apologize, it wasn't the Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush, it is the Seeker 0.3 millimeter airbrush. They both perform very equally though. So I'll go ahead and speed this up a little bit, but and I waited probably 10 to 15 minutes between each one of the coats that you're going to see flashing by on the screen here. So fast forward, I'm going to go 4X.
Okay, so we sprayed the yellow on there, took several coats. So I am going to sand that down with 1500 and probably give it another shot or two of yellow. We're just going to see how that Z shift looked. And I think I see just a little bit of translucence here. I probably should have reshot that one more time in white before I colored it, but you can do the same thing by just sanding this down and hitting it with another coat or two of yellow. So let me sand that down with some 1500 and we'll come back and take a look at it. And we got everything else sprayed too. We got the chassis, trunk lid, engine block, radiator, shroud.
Okay, so after doing that sanding, I could still see a little bit of that Z shift, and I also had a little bit of translucent in that area because I didn't prime it real good before I went to color. So I went with 2 more coats of yellow, all off camera, and let that all cured up, and then I went ahead and sanded with 5000 Trizact before I went to clear coat. But in the meantime, moved on to the rest of the build, so let's take a look at some of that. Okay, so the other kind of things I'm seeing that you're running into, and I don't know if it's typical of all the 3D kits or just this one, I don't know, because it's my first time, but you're going to find a lot of broken pieces. For example, this is the gas pedal, brake pedal assembly. The 2 pedals in the bag were in the box were broken off. The arm right here was broken off from the frame, so I've glued that on, and then I tried to glue the pedals on, and of course they flung and they're gone. So ain't gonna have those pedals. And then on the steering wheel assembly here, the steering wheel, the steering stock column, it was broken in 3 places. So I'm gluing the first piece onto the dashboard, then I'm going to let that cure up, and I'm going to have to file and pin the steering wheel. So okay, so when there is a 3D print, one side primarily is going to be smooth and finished, and the supports that hold it are going to be put in the least noticeable position. So like in this case here for the interior, it's fairly smooth on top, but the bottom is very prickly. But yet if you want to flip this over or show it on a mirror, or be proud of your underbody, that's all prickly. That's all got to be fixed. No, it does sand easy. You got to be careful though. You shouldn't be breathing this resin stuff in, so wear a dust mask. But I'm using one of these little sanding sticks that I got at Hobby Lobby. One side's a little bit rough, one side's smoother. And I'm just kind of going at those little support prickly areas here. So it could be smoothed out, except for, you're going to have areas where, like the transmission tunnel and right along these little locators for the frame, it's going to be a little tougher to sand, but, it's just going to take time. Yeah, I know we're all model builders. Some people scratch build just about everything, so I probably sound like a little whiner here. I don't know. To me, this part is just not enjoyable. I think it's the subject matter. If the subject matter is that important to you, then you probably have the motivation to go through all this. Like if it was your first car or your parents' car or something, and it's a 3D printed resin is the only way you can find it. Then I get it. You're gonna be more motivated. It's like dealing with a bad AMT kit. You can make them look good. Just depends. But this one, I'm just, I'm not the most motivated because it's just not my taste. I get the fact that this has an upgraded drivetrain. It's got a Ford 5.0 fuel injected engine and stuff, so it's not a era correct car. What did attract me to it is the chop top.
mainly. But those wheels are hideous to me, the wheels and tires. So, no, I'm not real motivated. You know, I had a lot of prep on the body. Now I got a lot of prep here. But I told you up front, you know, that even if I have sponsors, that I will always be honest with you on my reviews. So, you know, okay, so the plus. Well, on 3D printed stuff, you can find subject matter that may not be available any other form right now. So there's a plus. Fitment is generally pretty good. Things do fit good, you know, especially like the engines and stuff like that. But like I test fitted the body to this, and I fitted to the chassis, and all that is a beautiful positive fitment. So there are positives. But, you know, it's very fragile, like I told you. A lot of cleanup if you want all this stuff gone. You know, which, you know, you can make it a curbside and not want the bottom to be looked at, and move forward and save yourself a bunch of time. And I'm kind of only doing this for the sake of showing you what can be done. In fact, you know, if it wasn't for the video, I wouldn't even be bothering with this, because it's going to be a shelf model in my opinion. So, all right, well, I'm going to keep on sanding away. Okay, so working on the prickly side of the underbody. So this was rough sanded, but you know, this was wet sanded with 800 here. So if you do take the time and patience, you can smooth that out and make it look pretty good. No details though, because you know, it's not going to have, you're sanding away so much that there is no detail. It's just going to be flat, but probably better than a porcupine. So it can be smoothed out if you want to take your time, if you wanted that to be open. And same with that inner trunk lid that I have. If I really want that trunk to be open, then I have to do some significant sanding. So, all right, I just wanted to show you that, you know, and then again, the top side doesn't need any more than a good cleanup. I spoke some negatives about the 3D printed model, but look at this. Now that is really cool, because like this grill, you can see right through it. It's transparent, amazing detail. Yeah, it's fragile, but that you can't get out of a plastic kit. So, so there's a plus. Okay, so on plastic kits, you know, I'll generally prime my body for sure. But smaller parts, engines and whatnot, I usually will just go to color, you know, in most cases. But with resin parts, I prime everything, because they tend to soak up the paint. They act like they're porous a little bit. So I usually do not just paint directly over the resin. So everything is going to get primed. This isn't even everything. I've got a lot of it staged over at my booth right now. But I am going to prime everything with Kaleido's matte black. And I'm going to do that off camera, because I don't want to bore you to death. So I'll get all that primed and we'll be back. Okay, so I'm going to assemble the engine. I got everything painted up now. And it's also my first attempt at bluing my headers. So I used a little bit of the Kaleido clear blue, and just hit what I consider the hottest parts of the header. So never done that before, but I think it adds a little bit of realism to the model. So we'll see how it looks when it's all put together there. Okay, so I got everything painted. So I used yellow, black, and a little bit of gunmetal, and that just gives me a little contrast here. So we're going to start assembling. You know, I might complain a little bit about the body on the 3D kit needing a lot of extra labor and work, but it's undeniable the detail you get out of this 3D printing, so you're not going to find a better plastic engine anywhere. That's looking good, and I still need to touch it up and dress it up and do a little panel lining and stuff, but very cool. The headers are not glued on purpose. They're not due to go on at this stage, so. Okay, so I'm working on detailing out some of the items here. So front suspension, control arms and whatnot, I chromed. Blacked out the back suspension parts. Disc brakes. Once again, the detail in 3D printing, especially the slotted brake discs. Look at that. You got slots. On the end, you got your detail. You can see the two plates together with the ribs between it for cooling. I mean, that's pretty incredible detail. You're not going to get that through plastic injection. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, so I've taken the body and wet sanded that down with 5/1000 Trizact, and I did glue the trunk lid on because I just don't want to hinge that or whatever. I won't be messing with it that way. So I am ready to put Kaleido Clear on there. So that'll be Kaleido Clear varnish. Okay, so I'm using the Kaleido varnish gloss, and I figure I need about 7.5 milliliters, probably more than enough there, I think, for at least 2 to 3 wet coats probably. So I fill it up to that line, and then my buddy Craig Gordon over at Stumpy Grumps Scale Speed Shop, he kind of taught me this one. When you buy the set of the Kaleido paints, you get this 60 milliliter bottle of their thinner, and then I also have their retarder, and the retarder slows down the dry time a little bit and just helps everything level out a little bit. So what I did is I had 60 milliliters of thinner, and I added 10 milliliters of the retarder, so that gave that a 10% retarder action. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add about 10% of that to my clear, 10 to 15%. So this is a 1.25 milliliter measuring cup. And then I take a clean pipette and I'll stir and kind of just, I'll suck that up and then squirt it back in. Just kind of ensures that it's blended and mixed up really good. Now, this is ready to spray right out of the bottle. So by thinning it like this, it does get a lot thinner, and there is the risk of running, but it does improve how it smooths out. I want it to, I will be color sanding and buffing, but I don't want it to be textured like sandpaper before I sand and buff. I want it to be almost like, hey, that's pretty smooth. You could just finish your model that way. That's kind of what I'm going for, because the least amount of sanding, just the better the outcome. And especially because this model has so many high raised edges, that becomes tricky sanding. So, all right, so we are all mixed up. I am going to be shooting with my Advanced Seeker 0.3 millimeter needle nozzle combination, and about 20-25 psi, so right about 23 psi. And I'm gonna wait probably about 10 minutes between each coat. We'll just see about 10 minutes between each wet coat. So I plan on doing probably 3 wet coats, medium wet coats. Okay, so I'm at the first coat here, and
I put a wet coat on this front nose piece, but when I get to the actual kit here, my very first coat, I start off with just dusting it into the hard to get areas, all your nooks and crannies, like your wheel wells and the window frames and the bottom of the rockers and whatnot. And once I get all that with a coat of clear, then I'll unleash it to a wetter coat. I would say medium to wet coat. So this is the first of 3. I'll speed that up a little bit. Okay, so I'm just working on some details here while I'm waiting for the body to cure. So one of the things is the headlights. So I have used the Brush On Fusion Firm Chrome, and I did not get any lenses. Keep in mind it's a 3D kit, so there is a lens that is in the file, but he didn't, Model Maker's Workshop did not print any clear items. So I didn't have lenses at all. So I just had the bucket. So I chromed inside and outside, and then I let that set up for a few days. And then I took UV resin, and I get this on Amazon, and I do have a link for it in my description, along with everything else that I use. But I filled the entire bucket up with the UV resin, and actually a little bit high. As you can see, there's like a little bit of a dome there. And then I used the UV light. I used about 5 minutes because it's a little bit thicker than normal. But there you go. I got nice, really great lenses, very crystal clear. Got a nice little dome on them. Working on the dashboard. So there's no decals or anything, but it's very nice and detailed and simple. So what I did here is I used Tamiya X2 white and diluted that with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner and made basically a little wash of the white, and just dipped that in with a fine little tip paintbrush for my gauges to kind of make it look like white face gauges. And the fact that it was so diluted, you can still see the needles and whatnot. So to me, it kind of, I think it's going to work okay. So I'm going to use some UV resin here with a toothpick, and let's do that, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. Just taking a toothpick, and I'm just going to touch that into the gauge. And kind of just build that up to like a little raised
area, or a raised lens. Once again, like I've said in other videos, the surface tension of this is pretty good, so you can actually build it up higher, like a little dome. The gauge is filled, so I'm going to take my little light and I'll give it 105 seconds and just let that cure up. So we'll be back. Okay, let's pull it away and see what we got. Real nice. So it's got the look of a gauge pod. Tell you that UV resin is the bomb. Okay, so after several coats of clear coat, and the car has cured for over 24 hours, including several hours in the dehydrator. Got a fairly nice gloss finish, but you know, I got some little slightest bit of orange peel and a couple dust nubs and whatnot, so I'm going to start sanding this. I'm going to start out with 3/1000 Trizect, and then go to 5, and then probably up to 12. We'll just see how it goes. So just got a little bit of water and a little bit of Dawn dish soap in there to help lubricate it a little bit. And I'm just going to start gently wiping or sanding. I know it gets a little bit boring watching somebody sand. It's like watching paint dry. So what I'll do is I'll kind of cut and edit this out a little bit and I'll speed it up. But I'll do a little bit of the 5/1000s. I'll show a little bit of the 8/1000s and a little bit of the 12/1000s and a little bit of the polishing. Okay, so we'll speed that up. Okay, I'm going to move on to 5/1000 Trizect. Okay, flattened out really good with the 5/1000, so now I'm going with some 12/1000 mesh. No real pressure, just light tension, I guess is all I would say, finger pressure wise. This 12/1000 leaves a really nice, like a shine actually. It's not extremely high gloss, but it has a real natural look to it, almost like factory would probably be, or the old-fashioned single stage paint. I'll show you what I mean here. You can see the reflection there. That's what you want. No sanding scratches, and then, you know, we can polish out anything else. So I'm going to get the rest of this all sanded down, and then we'll go to polishing. So we'll be back. Okay, so I got it all sanded down. You actually got a fairly decent shine already. But I'm going to use now Meguiar's Plast X and a clean little flannel swath from an old flannel shirt. I'm actually going to dampen this just a little bit. And I'll start with the roof here. Just get a little dot of compound on there. Wrap my towel around my finger. And just start buffing away. I like to buff by hand whenever possible. There are times where I'll use my Dremel tool, but it's not my preferred method. Way too easy to burn through with that Dremel tool. Although if you have something really stubborn, the Dremel tool will help speed you up. So microfiber towel here, and you can see you're getting a really nice shine there. Okay, so I'm going to continue buffing with the plastics, and I'll get that all finished up, and then I'll come back and show you what that's looking like. Okay, so I polished it out with the plastics and then followed up with Meguiar's Ultimate Polish and Gloss Enhancer. And that product lives up to its name. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, this, you might be able to tell that I wasn't really thrilled with the process of making this look good. But it looks better than I thought it was going to. It just shows that it took a lot of labor and elbow grease, but I think it was worth it. All those attempts at sanding and priming and sanding and priming over and over and over really flattened out that Z-shift significantly. It's still slight, but yeah, I really like that look. I think it came out really, really nice. So, all right, that kind of motivates me a bit to finish the project for sure. Nothing like a shiny paint job to motivate you. That's why I always start with my body and paint first. So, okay, move on. Okay, so now I'm gonna paint my tires. Now, I mean, they're black already because I painted them with the Kaleido matte black primer, but you know, they're just too black. Now, I usually use Tamiya rubber black, but the latest Kaleido colors that came out, the new set of auto colors, or primary colors, KO48 is called rubber black. So I'm gonna test this. Actually, in the bottle, it looks like it's a little bit of blue or gray. So let's mix it up and see what we got here. And this is ready to spray right out of the bottle. So let's put a few drops in my airbrush and we'll test it out. I don't know if you can tell, but the left one is the rubber black and the right one is the matte black. So it's definitely a bit more on the gray side. Okay, so now it's time to add some, or cut out some glass. And this is just clear acetate that I got from like a large package. So I just cut that off and saved it in a drawer. And I save a few of those just in case I ever need them. Now the kit came with a couple bucks. It came with the front windshield template, a rear glass template, and it also came with a rear side window that I misplaced. So I traced this one out on a piece of cardstock here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to have to cut this out. So I'm going to use a scalpel number 11 blade. It's the sharpest thing I have, and I think it'll probably take several attempts to cut all the way through with any kind of precision. I think I'm going to get a piece of paper to put under here so I can see better, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I put a piece of white paper behind my acetate so I can really see what I'm doing. And I'm just using a really thin Sharpie here. So I already marked out the windshield and now the back window. Okay, I think I'm actually going to cut that with scissors, at least to get it close, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so that's a rough cut. Now, I don't know if you can see inside the model, but there's a little bit of a relief where each of the windows goes. So I'll do a little test fit here, but I'll probably have to file that down a little bit and fine tune it. It's close. Okay, so I'm just gonna file the corners because I didn't round the corners at all, and that's probably the biggest thing that's in my way right now. There you go, that fit. Yeah, I got just a little bit more to do, but that's actually going to slide in there and friction fit almost. Okay, so anyways, let me just trim that up a little bit more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to polish this with plastics because it's got a little bit scratched up from messing with it and stuff. So I'll get all these cut out and then we'll be right back. All right, so I cut, filed, and shaped my glass out of the acetate. So let me pick one up here. Okay, so it's a little bit scratched up and everything from all my handling. So I'm going to use a little bit of plastics from Meguiar's, and I just poured in a little cap here with a little Q-tip. Just going to smear a little bit on both sides. And then I just have this little swath of felt. This is the same stuff I used to polish the car. And I'm just going to polish out that glass a little bit because it's all a little bit scratchy. I have to hold on to it, so I'm only going to do one half at a time. Just kind of squeezing it on both sides and just polishing it out. Okay, then I'll take a microfiber. Just wipe off any residue. Okay, it looks a lot better. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. It's a chopped top, so it's really not going to be very noticeable in the first place. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of UV resin glue into position with a toothpick into that windshield area. Get another cap, put some of this into a cap, take a toothpick. And this is my first time gluing in with UV resin. I usually use Mod Podge, but what's going to be great about this is this stuff is a little bit syrupy. So if you place your glass into place, it should stick, and then you can just shine your little UV light in there to cure it. And of course this dries nice and clear, or cures nice and clear. So now I'm going to carefully pick up my glass with my tweezers. Carefully place that in there. And I think I'll just hold it in place with my finger. Best clamp in the world. And shine my little light in there. And supposedly only 5 seconds, so we'll see. Get the other side. Okay, so that was more than 5 seconds. Let's see how well that held. It's in there. Okay, so now we got our first piece of glass. So I'm going to get the rest of the glass in, same way, and then we'll be back.
Okay, so just got a little spot in there. I'm hoping I can catch that on camera for you. Turn on my light. Aim it on there for a few seconds. And there you go, got the back glass in place. Okay, so I'll do the two side back windows off camera and then we'll be back. Okay, so I got all my glass installed. Okay, so I think our next step is to just begin assembly. Okay, so I have gathered up all the parts so that we can begin final assembly. And I'm going to follow it in the sequence of the instruction sheets. The engine, of course, has already been assembled, except for the exhaust. So let me get everything out of the way here and only concentrate on what I need to right now. you go. Okay, so it's ready for final reveal. Okay, and here we get a look at her all completed in the model building turntable showroom. In the end, it really does look pretty nice. I don't know, I was frustrated at points throughout the process because it was my first real experience dealing with a resin, 3D printed resin body. And in this case, there was some Z-shift going on the sides that was pretty intense. Actually, I have seen worse. I've just never had to deal with it before. I am assured that Models Makers Workshop has adjusted their process, and supposedly that's more minimal now. But, you know, it was fixable. That's the big important part. Just several attempts to prime and sand to get that smoothed out. But in the end, I think it's gone. It's or almost totally gone. You can't deny the detail on the fitment of a 3D printed item, though. Everything has a place and everything's a positive fitment. You know, usually I struggle to get a body on a chassis or whatnot. In this case, everything just fit like a glove. I'm not a big fan of the low profile wheels, but they do come with the kit. I am missing the 2 side mirrors and 2 center caps. And they are on their way to me from Model Makers Workshop. They were not in the box or the bags. And they attach right next to the front windows there, and then the 2 center caps are for the back wheels. Okay, so I will leave you with a little slideshow from different angles so you can see it from all points of view. And I appreciate you watching, and our next build's just around the corner, so come back again, folks.